G'day everyone, it's James Beazley, Managing Director, Six Group. Welcome to the Weekly Bees. This week, I'm going to do a bit of a follow-on from last week. If you remember last week, I spoke about this concept of capability. How do we measure individual capability through leadership assessment? And you'll see behind me, I've got the board out again. And just to reiterate, capability, the way we looked at it was we brought it down to a formula that people could understand. And that was, we looked at the drivers in terms of what is the individual motivation of people. We looked at experience, we looked at competence, both functional and behavioural. Then we looked at a real play exercise to assess the agility of someone's mind, the way they think. Are they constrained by a system or not? Gives a good idea of the person, but of course that doesn't mean anything in terms of capability because we need to know the context that they're playing and what's the playing field. This week we move it on. And the reason we move it on is because I've had a number of clients come to me after seeing last week's Weekly Bees saying, look, that's great from an individual perspective, but when we've got to do a transformational change or a project, which is a significant project that we have to deliver, great that we know the capability of people, but how do we make sure that we actually do deliver what we say we're going to deliver? So we've worked on this for a number of years, and it came as a concept to me via Shell when I was working there, where they were looking at mega projects and they came with this concept called predictable delivery and creating a project methodology around ensuring that they would have, exactly as the term states, a predictable delivery. I latched onto that idea and thought, well, what is it that gives you predictable delivery performance? And we've worked on this for the last 10 years on a number of different transformations around the world. And like I say, it's a follow-on from the individual capability to now look at what we've got to do as a collective. So we call it predictable delivery performance. And again, what I try to do and what we try to do at Six is bring it down to a formula that people can understand. So the first part is capability, which is what we talked about last week. We need to know the capability internally. What have we got on the playing field at the moment? What is our current status of capability? So once we've done that, we then look at this new concept here, which is, I call it motivation, but it's not just the drivers of any individual. What we term it is, it's a collective intent. So what is the collective group intent for this project? And that is actually stating at the beginning of the project, how we're going to form and base our decisions. Classic example is a major project. It was a big manufacturing facility, or it could be a refinery, it could be anything like that. Project managers are focused on cost, schedule, time. That's their driver. Then you've got people in operations who have to actually operate the thing. Their driver and their motivation is they want kit that they can put in place that will run at a constant level for the next 5 years, safely, reliably, that they don't have to necessarily worry about. So you can see there's already two different types of motivations driving people's decision making. So when I talk about collective intent, it's about setting right there at the beginning of the project the ground rules around how we're going to base our decisions. And our collective intent is that we're going to base our decisions on what's going to be right for the predictable outcome we need. So if it's a big refinery and we're putting in new kit, well, don't have that decision resting solely with the actual project manager. Actually consult who's going to use the kit. Operations. What is it about the operation of that kit that is going to make it a success? Well, what's going to make it a success is we need kit that's going to fit in with the refinery. We need kit that's going to fit in with the manufacturing plant that keeps it reliable, keeps it safe, and keeps on us churning out the tons we need or churning out the number of units that we need. So that's collective intent. The big one, which I think is the hardest one in looking at predictable delivery performance, is if we've got capability plus the collective intent, we need to be able to remove and take away the last one, which is the obstacles and risks. And this is really hard to identify because in a lot of cases you don't know what you don't know. So the key to that is actually up front getting a risk register and actually identifying what are the potential obstacles, what are the biggest risks to us not achieving a predictable outcome here. And if you're able to get that up front, you're able to then workshop very, very quickly what it is we need to put in place in this project schedule, in the cost, in whatever innovation we need to do to ensure we get the outcome we want. Now that's great once we've got that, but then again, we can go along and do whatever we want to do in that, but it's not going to get us to the end goal unless we know what context we're in. Do we have a tight time frame? Do we have 10 years to do this? Are there some capital constraints? Are there human capital constraints? So we need to know, what is that denominator? Again, what's the playing field we're on that determines the sport we're going to play to get us the outcome we need, to get us our 6-0 win, to get us our 115 runs to nil, our 4-1 win in the Ashes series. That's Australia, by the way, not England. So there you go, guys. That is our interpretation of predictable delivery performance. Is the way you're able to structure that and get that in is know your capabilities, get a common ground rules around what is the collective intent, what's the motivation to get us to there, and how we base our decisions. How do we remove the obstacles? So actually, how do we identify and remove the obstacles and risks? And that's all overlaid with knowing what the context is that we're playing with as well. So I hope that helps. I would love your feedback on it. Any questions, any thoughts, any pushback. And I look forward to seeing you all next week. That's it for the Weekly Bees.